Today, I'll be exposing every gameplay feature that Fortnite Battle Royale reused, recycled, and flat out copied from Save the World years later. So starting out for the first list of categories, I'll firstly be exposing the knockoff weapons. Which first up is the duelist pistol, which first released into Save the World in 2018, and later on copied to become one of Fortnite's most iconic weapons, the flintlock pistol, which came to Battle Royale in 2019. And as you can tell at first glance, these weapons look nearly identical, and ultimately function the same exact way. But where the real copy and paste feature took place was when players discovered the new fun mechanic of the Battle Royale flintlock, which gave you the ability to shoot yourself backwards when you fired the pistol. Eventually, OG Save the World players pointed out this was a not so new mechanic, as this feature was already in the game 1 year earlier if paired with the soldier loadout. And for the next set of weapons, we got the tiny instrument of death, released in Save the World back in 2018, and its complete ripoff, the Swarm Strike RPG, which hit Battle Royale in 2025. At first, players thought both these weapons seemed very unique. But once players got their hands on the Swarm Strike RPG, the quote-unquote new mechanic of being able to control where the rockets went felt very familiar, because it wasn't actually new at all, as it was the same exact feature Save the World came up with 7 years earlier for the tiny instrument of death. Lastly, for the knockoff weapons category is the Freedom Zero pistol from Save the World in 2018 and its Battle Royale copy, the flare gun, added in summer of 2020. And both of these items work the same. You can shoot directly at enemies for dealing instant damage, or fire into the sky to scan and mark opponents. When the flare gun first dropped in Battle Royale, everyone thought this was a brand new feature. But in reality, this was already in Save the World 2 years earlier if you ran the Fossil Society loadout. With the only real difference being in Battle Royale, the flare gun could also burn structures, something the original Save the World version never did. Moving on to the next category, I'll be exposing the reused items. First up, we got the Save the World hoverboard, which dropped back in 2018, and the Battle Royale driftboard, which didn't show up until 2019. When the driftboard hit Battle Royale in Season 7, players went crazy. It was finally a fun and fast way to zoom across the map, way better than the old clunky rides like the shopping cart or ATK golf cart. But most forgot that the hoverboard was actually the pioneer of all those items, as Save the World released the original hoverboard over 1 year earlier, with the only new updated features on the new hoverboard being the ability to shoot your weapons as you hovered and the feature to do tricks. So overall, Epic at least tried to update this item from the original, unlike the next set of items, which is the supply drop gadget from Save the World that first released way back in 2014, and the Battle Royale dial drop, which dropped 8 years later in 2022. In Battle Royale, supply drops were always random, but the dial drop finally changed that, letting players call one in on command. At first, everyone thought this was a brand new feature until some Save the World players pointed out this wasn't new at all, as the supply drop gadget had already done the same exact thing years earlier, letting you spawn in a supply drop anywhere with a remote. The only real difference, well, in Battle Royale, the dial drop could also spawn in vehicles, but aside from that, they're nearly identical. Lastly, in the reused items category, we have the Save the World Airstrike gadget from 2014, which later appeared almost unchanged as the Airstrike in Battle Royale during 2019. Aside from the updated look, both versions work the same exact way. When equipped, each item displays the impact radius on the ground, and once deployed, a warning sound plays before a wave of missiles rains down. The only notable difference is that in Battle Royale, Epic added a slightly longer delay after activation, giving players a fair chance to escape before the bombardment begins. Moving on to the next category, we have the Reworked Medallions. For example, the phase shift ability for Outlanders, which first released in the Save the World in 2018, is nearly identical to the Grimgate Dash Medallion, which arrived in Battle Royale in 2024. The Dash Medallion instantly became a fan favorite, giving players infinite mobility across the map with only a short cooldown after 3 dashes. But Save the World actually experienced that same mechanic almost 6 years earlier, except with 9 dashes before a cooldown kicked in. So overall, what many Battle Royale fans thought was a brand new feature was actually borrowed straight from Save the World, ultimately being a forgotten feature brought back to the spotlight. Next up, we got the Shadow Sands perk from Save the World that first arrived back in 2018, and its Battle Royale counterpart, the Stealth Medallion, added in 2024. With the medallion, players could go invisible for 15 seconds and passively regenerate shields over time. But the more you think about it, the more it feels like Epic didn't really innovate here. Instead, they just recycled the Shadow Sands perk from Save the World, which also gave players invisibility and passive shield regeneration over time. Lastly, for the reworked medallions, we've got the Save the World Ninja Double Jump ability from 2017 and the Battle Royale Spring Leg medallion that sprung into Battle Royale in 2025. The concept for both these items was simple, both allowing players to do a double jump midair instead of the basic jump. But simple concept or not, players don't give enough credit to City World for having this feature almost 8 years earlier in a time where Battle Royale didn't have any advanced movement yet. Moving on to the fourth category, we have the reused mechanics, which first up, we've got the Storm King's Fury, which came to City World in 2019, and the Shockwave Hammer, which first released in the Battle Royale in 2022. When the Shockwave Hammer first dropped, players debated if it was the new best mobility item in the game, until City World players pointed out something interesting, as its animations looked almost identical to the Storm King's Fury, because when used, the Shockwave Hammer firstly had a wind-up animation that then launched you forward through the air, and finished with a ground slam that dealt damage. But 3 years earlier, the Storm King's Fury had those same exact mechanics, as it had the same wind-up animation, the same launch through the air, and even the same ground slam against enemies. Only difference being in the form of separate attacks. Next up for the reused mechanics, we've got the Save the World Rocket Launcher from 2014 and the classic Battle Royale RPG from 2017. But secretly, both RPG had the same hidden mechanic, because in the beginning of Chapter 1, popular streamers were pulling off viral clips with the newly discovered rocket riding mechanic. Players had all sorts of unique trick shots, which ultimately made rocket riding into a new fan favorite feature. Well, at least players thought, as rocket riding had actually been discovered an estimated 3 years earlier in Save the World. And not only was normal rocket riding already a thing, but you could also use bows, pumpkin launchers, Christmas launchers, basically every RPG variant. So while Battle Royale made it famous, rocket riding was truly launched in Save the World. A lot of players think llamas first showed up back in Battle Royale in March of 2018, but that's not true, as they actually began in Save the World's llama shop in July of 2017, in the form of pinatas you could break open for some of the best loot in the game. But here's the twist. Those pinatas still weren't even the first llamas, as back in early 2014 Save the World game builds, llamas actually spawned on the Save the World map itself. The only difference, you had to actually deploy them when found. But just like in Battle Royale today, only 3 spawn per game, they drop mats, ammo, and even had the same exploding confetti sound that we still know to this day. And moving on to the last category, I'll be exposing the copied settings, which first up, we got the Save the World option to turn off grass, which was first added in 2018, and Battle Royale Performance Mode, which came in 2020. When Performance Mode is turned on, it automatically disables grass. This was one of the most requested features from Battle Royale players for years. But little did they know, Save the World already had this setting to turn off grass the entire time. So in reality, Battle Royale's Performance Mode was pretty much just reusing something Save the World players have been taking advantage of since 2018. And last up, we've got the Save the World First Person setting from 2017 versus the Battle Royale First Person that finally dropped in 2023. For years, creative map makers rushed to create their own early versions of First Person with Creative 2.0, until Epic officially released Ballistic. But what many players didn't know is that Save the World actually had a settings option for First Person almost a decade earlier before the release of Ballistic. And once turned on, you'd go into First Person view. And yes, it was very gimmicky, but players could still crank 90s and shoot in First Person all the way back in 2018. So in conclusion, did Battle Royale actually copy all these features from Save the World? I guess we won't know. So let me hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.